The mirror of desire. There is a moment in every man's life when he stops asking, "What do women want?" and begins to whisper, "What part of me are they trying to awaken?" Because what he calls female mystery isn't really about women. It's about the side of his own soul he's never dared to meet, his buried longing, his fear of power, his hunger for reflection. Carl Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." When a man feels confusion toward women, he is really standing at the edge of his own shadow, the part of his psyche that resists surrender, that craves control, that fears to be seen without armor. We live in a culture that turns desire into strategy, where men are told to decipher women, to decode attraction, to win. But the deeper truth is this: what you chase is already within you, and what she mirrors back is the reflection of your own unconscious. The modern world has reduced feminine psychology to cliches: mystery, manipulation, drama, and yet Jung saw something much older, much more dangerous, and far more sacred. He called it the dark feminine, the primal, untamed energy of Eros that doesn't seek to please, but to awaken. Every man encounters her, not only in women, but in dreams, temptations, obsessions, and heartbreak. She is the siren in your desire, the silence in your grief, the chaos that pulls you into transformation. You can demonize her, or you can listen, because beneath every dark truth about women lies an even darker truth about men, that we fear the very qualities that could set us free. Her unpredictability exposes our need for control. Her emotional depth reveals our own emotional poverty. Her desire for strength challenges our hidden weakness. And the more we resist her, the more she rules us from the shadows. Jung believed that love is the most dangerous path to self-knowledge. It strips you bare. It burns away illusion. It forces you to meet not the woman in front of you, but the mirror of your own soul reflected through her eyes. This is not a guide to understand women. It's an initiation into understanding yourself through them. Because when you truly see her, you no longer see a woman. You see the anima, the living symbol of your own unconscious longing for wholeness. Tonight, we descend into the psychology behind the myths, the hidden dynamics between masculine and feminine that shape every desire, every heartbreak, every secret game of love and power. These are not commandments. They are mirrors. 10 reflections of the dark feminine, reinterpreted through the lens of Jung's philosophy, where shadow work meets human psychology, and every truth about her becomes a revelation about you. So take a breath. Don't listen as a man who wants to conquer. Listen as a man who wants to remember, because what you seek in women is what your soul has been whispering all along, to stop chasing and finally come home. The archetype of attraction. Somewhere between a man's need to be wanted and a woman's need to feel safe, a silent game begins. Not a game of deceit, but of memory. A memory older than speech, where Eros and Logos first began their dance. It's strange, isn't it? How attraction always carries a hint of danger. How she looks at you, not just to see you, but to feel whether she can lose you. The modern man calls it the chase, but Jung would call it something far more ancient, the awakening of polarity, the soul's reminder that love is never born from comfort, but from tension. When she senses that you belong wholly to yourself, something inside her exhales, because the feminine doesn't fall for dominance, it falls for gravity, that quiet strength in a man's gaze that says, "I will not abandon myself to please you." The moment he does, something sacred dies. and she feels it before he does. That subtle collapse of the spine, the shift from man to boy, from center to orbit. She'll never say it aloud, but she respects only what cannot be possessed. Because deep down, she doesn't want to own you. She wants to trust you. She wants to rest inside the field of a man who isn't afraid of her storms, who can hold the wildness of her moods without losing his shape. And so she tests you, not to humiliate, but to measure the container of your presence. Each challenge, each small defiance is her unconscious asking, "Can your spirit hold mine?" Most men think they're being attacked, when in truth, they're being invited. Invited to stand firm, to stop leaking energy through the cracks of insecurity. Because if your boundary bends every time she pushes, you teach her that even you do not trust yourself. And how could she then? True boundaries are not walls. They are rivers that refuse to spill from their course. They tell the feminine, "This is where my spirit begins, and if you step inside, you will find peace, but not chaos." That peace is what her nervous system aches for. That stillness is what makes her heart open again. For only a man who knows how to say no with quiet compassion can ever make her feel safe enough to surrender her, yes. But there is a moment even deeper, when she stops testing your edges and starts seeking your direction. When love is no longer about comfort, but about meaning. She'll tell you she wants to be your number one, but watch closely. The moment you place her above your purpose, something inside her begins to fade. Because she didn't fall in love with your attention, she fell in love with your fire. She was drawn to that invisible current that moves you towards something larger, a dream, a mission, a calling, the very same current that built civilizations and carved cathedrals from stone. And when that current dies, the polarity dies with it. She begins to mother you instead of admire you, to fix you instead of follow you. And the tragic irony is, she'll resent you for letting her, because a man who orbits her asks her to carry the burden of direction when what her soul truly longs for is to rest beside a man who already has one. Jung said, "A man who cannot find meaning will seek it in the gaze of a woman." But that gaze can never replace a compass. It can only reflect where you've already chosen to go. So she may appear to choose status over love, but what she's really choosing is vitality over stagnation, vision over comfort, movement over stillness. The woman who walks beside a man aligned with his path feels the pulse of life itself through him. He becomes less of a possession, more of a phenomenon. He reminds her that love, in its purest form, is not safety, it's aliveness. And perhaps that's what she's been chasing all along. Not the man who loves her most, but the one who remains most alive in her presence. When he stands in his center, she feels the echo of her own. When he remembers his purpose, she remembers her faith. And together, they stop being two halves looking to complete each other and become two flames illuminating the same truth. That real attraction is never about control. It's about recognition, a remembering of something eternal that once was whole, and now, for a brief and trembling moment, meets itself again through human eyes. The shadow dance, wounds, projection, and power. Some truths only reveal themselves in the half-light, when desire softens into confusion, and what once felt like connection begins to look suspiciously like a pattern. Every man has known that moment, the silence after an argument that shouldn't have hurt this much, the feeling that you're being punished for crimes you never committed, the sudden change in her tone, the walls rising where moments ago there was warmth. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? But Jung would whisper, it's not what you did, It's what you represent. Because no one sees you as you are. They see you as their unconscious remembers you. And love, before it ever becomes real, is projection. She calls another man her friend, swears it's harmless, and maybe it is. But what she hides behind that friendship is not betrayal, it's her shadow. The part of her that doesn't fit the life she's built, the desires she's learned to censor, the wildness she once swore to tame. And the man she keeps close but not too close is the mirror she uses to remember that part of herself. He may never touch her, but he touches a secret frequency in her psyche, a place where rules and roles fall away, where she can momentarily stop being the woman she's supposed to be and breathe as the woman she still is underneath. You see, the feminine doesn't hide her darkness because she's deceitful. She hides it because she's been told her whole life that her darkness is too much, too emotional, too sexual, too demanding, too alive. And so she splits. She loves you for your safety, but confides in him for her freedom. One man becomes the light she clings to, the other, the mirror of her forbidden fire. It isn't about infidelity, it's about integration. She's searching, unconsciously, for a man who can hold both, who can see the woman she shows the world and the one she hides from herself, and not flinch. But few men can, because most men have their own split. They confuse love with approval and purpose with performance. That's why she eventually leaves the man who made her his world, not because she stopped loving him, but because somewhere she stopped believing he could hold his own. When a man puts a woman on a throne, he unknowingly abdicates his own kingdom. He makes her the sun and becomes the moon that revolves around her moods. And while she may bask in that light for a time, she soon begins to feel a strange burden, the weight of being worshipped by a man who has forgotten his gods. She'll say, "I need space." But what she really means is, "I need to feel your gravity again." Because the feminine doesn't want to lead. She wants to trust that your direction is strong enough to carry both of you through chaos. When that faith disappears, love quietly erodes into resentment. Jung saw this over and over. Men who surrendered their mission in exchange for affection then blamed women for the emptiness that followed. But it was never her fault. You cannot expect someone else to sustain a flame you yourself have abandoned. And while he's trying to prove his devotion, she's slipping further away, drawn not to another man, but to the echo of vitality she once saw in him. That spark that said, "I am alive, with or without you." That spark that made her believe. The tragedy is that both are starving for reflection. He wants to be seen as enough. She wants to feel that her energy still moves him. Neither realizes they're both chasing the same ghost, validation. It's subtle, this addiction. It hides behind compliments, behind selfies and silence, behind the constant checking of messages, and the unspoken question, "Am I still desirable?" Jung called it the hunger of the persona, the false self that feeds on attention because it has forgotten how to feed on truth. In the modern world, we've built an entire economy on this hunger. She posts a picture to feel seen, he pretends indifference to feel powerful, and neither notices that the space between them is no longer intimacy, but marketing. We have mistaken validation for connection and performance for presence. Yet beneath the noise, something ancient still whispers, the desire to be known, not admired, to be felt, not followed, to be met in the silent depth, where nothing needs to be proven anymore. That's the paradox of the shadow dance. Each of us projects what we can't bear to face. Our wounds, our shame, our hunger for control. onto the one who stands before us. And then we call it love. But if you stay long enough, if you resist the impulse to run or to fix, the projection begins to melt. You start to see the woman in front of you, not as your salvation or your destroyer, but as the mirror of your own unfinished work. That's when the real relationship begins, not between two perfect people, but between two souls brave enough to watch their illusions die together. When Jung spoke of the sacred marriage, he didn't mean the union of two bodies, but the reconciliation of opposites within, the feminine and masculine inside each of us, finally learning to hold hands instead of fighting for control. To love in that way is not to escape the shadow, but to dance with it, to know that the very things that scare you most in her are the same things you've refused to accept in yourself. And only when you look into that darkness, without judgment, without demand, and whisper, "I see you," does the dance end, not in defeat, but in understanding. Because what she hides, what she tests, what she craves, were never really about her at all. They were about the man. The universe keeps asking you to become. The hidden faces of desire. There are desires we name, and there are desires that wait in silence, shadows that never left even after the love was gone. When she blocks you, she doesn't erase you. She buries you in the dark soil of her unconscious. You become the ghost that visits her dreams, the echo that hums in certain songs, the presence she swears she's forgotten, but still checks for at 2 a.m. This is not obsession. It is unfinished alchemy. Jung wrote that the psyche never discards what it cannot integrate. It only hides it. Every relationship that ends leaves a residue of energy, an image that still wants to be completed. That is why forgetting never works, because memory isn't stored in the mind, it's stored in the soul. You were never just a person to her. You were an archetype, a fragment of her own animus, the part of her that seeks direction, that wants to feel safe in strength, that yearns to merge with meaning. So she keeps a door open in dream space, not for your body, but for the lesson unfinished. And you still feel her there sometimes, not as longing, but as a quiet pulse beneath the ribs. That's the tether of unresolved projection, and the only way to sever it is not by running away, but by seeing it clearly. She was the mirror of your own unmet self, and she lingers only until you finally meet that self within. The strength she tests in your silence. Women care about actions more than feelings, not because they're cold, but because the feminine trusts what is embodied, not what is explained. You can cry before her once. She'll hold you, but if you drown there too long, something in her heart begins to tremble, not out of cruelty, but because she can sense that you've lost the axis she once leaned on. The feminine doesn't need you to be invulnerable. She needs you to be rooted. Your feelings don't frighten her. Your disconnection does. Jung said that the mature masculine is not the absence of emotion, but the capacity to contain it. A man's tears become sacred when they fall inside the frame of awareness, when they don't seek rescue, only truth. She can feel the difference between a man collapsing into pain and a man witnessing his pain with presence. The first drains her, the second steadies her. So when she pulls away from your endless confessions, she's not rejecting your humanity. She's asking you to remember your divinity. She's asking you to feel deeply, but stand tall inside that depth. Because the masculine heart is not a wall against emotion. It's the mountain that emotion can echo through without crumbling. The sacred power of Eros. There's a reason sexuality frightens us. It's the language of the unconscious. Every touch, every rhythm, every gasp between two bodies, is the psyche speaking in symbols. To the unintegrated mind, sex becomes a tool, a negotiation, a lure, a currency of control. She withholds it to test power, offers it to secure affection, uses it to feel momentarily divine. But beneath all of that, Eros is never manipulation. It is remembrance. It is the body's way of saying, we were one once, and we are trying to remember. Jung saw in erotic energy the same force that fuels creativity and mysticism, a fire that, if raised in consciousness, turns lust into illumination. When the shadow isn't integrated, that fire burns others. When it is, it becomes the warmth of presence, the tenderness that heals instead of consumes. So the next time you feel that pull, the desire, the hunger, the ache, don't suppress it and don't chase it. Listen to it. It is life itself knocking at your door, asking to be transformed into awareness. To honor that is to honor the divine feminine, not as an object of pleasure, but as the sacred current that awakens consciousness through love. The illusion of control, love, loss, and individuation. There comes a night when the light in her eyes turns into distance. You can feel it before she speaks, a subtle closing of doors, a quiet withdrawal of warmth that no apology can reach. You thought love was a promise. You believed that if you did everything right, she would stay. But love is not a contract. It is a mirror, and mirrors are meant to shatter. When she leaves, she takes with her the image of the man you were when she believed in you, and what's left, staring back at you, is the part you never learned to love without her. This is where every man meets his first real teacher, loss. Jung wrote that the meeting with the shadow is always a defeat for the ego, because the ego wants control, to fix, to explain, to make her come back. But the self wants truth, and truth rarely arrives gently. You'll try everything at first, rationalizing her silence, scrolling through old photos, checking if she's online. You tell yourself you're seeking closure, but what you're really doing is trying to escape initiation, because heartbreak, to Jung, was never punishment. It was transformation, the tearing apart of projection, so that you may finally see the person beneath the fantasy. The woman you loved wasn't an angel or a villain. She was a mirror that reflected your unclaimed soul. And when she shattered, the mirror turned inward. Suddenly, you see the boy who learned that love must be earned, the boy who confused attention with worth, the man who performed strength because he feared tenderness. Loss strips you bare until only truth remains. You realize that you never loved her freely. You loved the control she gave you over your loneliness. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a witness to prove you existed. But love is not a witness. It is a fire, and everything false must burn before it can warm you. In that burning, the illusion of control dissolves. You begin to notice the quiet beneath the ache, the strange peace that follows surrender. It is the first whisper of individuation, the soul reclaiming its power from the drama of desire. Individuation isn't the end of love. It's the purification of it. It asks you to hold both longing and letting go, without collapsing into either. To stand in the ruins of what was, and still say, I am, because that I is not the persona you used to impress her. It is the self, vast, steady, unbending, the part of you that can love without needing to possess. When you reach that silence, you begin to see her differently, not as the one who hurt you, but as the one who unknowingly carried your shadow so you could learn to meet it yourself. She came to teach you that control was never safety, that love cannot be negotiated, only received, and that every loss, if faced consciously, is a door back to your own center. You will miss her, of course you will, but one day, the ache softens into gratitude, because through her departure, you finally met the only person you were ever meant to hold on to, yourself. And when that reunion happens, something miraculous unfolds. The love you once chased outward starts flowing inward, filling the cracks that once demanded validation. Your heart doesn't close, it expands. It no longer seeks to be completed because it has remembered its wholeness. This is the quiet power Jung called the return of the self. The moment a man becomes his own gravity again, and from that gravity, love begins to orbit naturally. Not as control, not as need, but as presence. So, if you're standing in the ashes now, don't rush to rebuild. Stay, listen, because beneath the ruin of what was, the true architecture of love is being drawn. You have not been abandoned, you've been initiated, and the man emerging from this silence is no longer chasing what he lost. He's walking toward who he's meant to be. Before the calm of morning, there is always the storm, and this, too, is love. The part of her that terrifies you, the moods, the fire, the unpredictable craving for chaos, is not a flaw. It is the ancient rhythm of the wild woman that lives in every soul. She doesn't hate stability, she hates stagnation, because her essence is movement, the pulse of creation itself, forever dying, forever being reborn. You call her mercurial, but she is lunar, waxing and waning with the tides of existence. Her chaos isn't to destroy you, it's to awaken what has fallen asleep in you. Jung saw in the archetype of Kali, Lilith, and the untamed feminine, the face of the self that refuses domestication, the part of the psyche that will burn illusions, so that the soul can breathe again. So when she brings you to the edge, don't resist it, meet it, because in that edge lives life itself, raw, trembling, real. You are not meant to tame her, you are meant to dance with her, to find, between her chaos and your stillness, a new harmony, where passion no longer means war, but worship. Only then can both the masculine and the feminine rest, not in boredom, but in balance. The return, reclaiming presence in a connected world. Morning always comes quietly, as if it doesn't want to startle the ruins of the night. You wake not in triumph, but in stillness, no longer haunted by her voice, no longer fighting your own. Just a slow breath, a room filled with ordinary light, and the faint realization that for the first time in a long while, you're not waiting for a message to make you feel alive. This is how healing really begins, not in revelation, but in the smallest acts of presence. You start noticing things again, the hum of the refrigerator, the warmth of sunlight on the floor, the rhythm of your own pulse. It's almost absurd how the world was always here, and yet you were always somewhere else. Jung called this moment the return from the underworld. After the descent through chaos and heartbreak, the psyche begins to re-inhabit the body. Spirit meets flesh again. The sacred becomes ordinary. You stop chasing meaning through people and begin to feel meaning in everything. In the rustle of leaves, you sense forgiveness. In the sound of your footsteps, you hear belonging. And in your solitude, you realize it was never emptiness. It was spaciousness, waiting patiently for you to fill it with awareness. Presence, after all, isn't a skill you learn. It's what remains. When you stop running from yourself, the modern world has taught us to mistake connection for contact. to measure closeness by frequency of messages, not the depth of silence between them. But real connection is wordless. It's the feeling of being seen without performance, of being held without possession, of being loved without needing proof. And to find that, you must first live it within yourself. You begin to understand why Jung said, "Solitude is for me a fount of healing, which makes my life worth living." Because solitude is not the absence of love, it's the soil where love takes root again, untainted by need, undefended by ego. You don't need to isolate. You just need to inhabit the moment so fully that the noise of the world loses its power to define you. In this space, technology becomes tool, not tether. People become reflections, not possessions. And the heart learns again how to speak softly, without shouting to be heard. When you meet others now, you listen differently. You no longer scan their eyes for reassurance. You look to see what part of their story is asking to be witnessed. You no longer perform your worth. You embody it. You no longer fear rejection. You recognize it as a mirror of what still asks to be accepted within you. Presence changes everything. It slows time, softens edges, turns ordinary interactions into sacred ones. It makes you realize that the deepest intimacy isn't found in bodies intertwining, but in two people who can sit in silence and not need to fill it. And yet, this isn't the end of the path. Presence is only the threshold, the space between remembering and becoming. Because once you've learned to be here, you begin to feel something larger moving through you, an awareness that isn't just yours, but belongs to the whole. The same pulse that moves the ocean, that breathes through the trees, that speaks through dreams and moments of synchronicity. Jung called it the collective unconscious, the living field of soul that connects every being. When you touch that field consciously, you understand why love hurts, why loss heals, and why every encounter was never random. It was all the psyche's way of leading you back, not to someone, but to wholeness. You no longer chase union, you live it. Each breath becomes prayer, each moment becomes teacher, and life itself, this strange, beautiful, fleeting life, becomes a conversation between your soul and the universe. So take this quiet with you. Let it soften the edges of your days. Let it remind you that you don't need to prove your worth by being heard, seen, or chosen. You are already the choice of existence itself. You have returned, not to the world as it was, but to the world as it truly is, alive, luminous, intimate, and as you move through it now, remember, the point was never to escape the darkness, but to carry light within it. The light of awareness, becoming the mirror of consciousness. There is a light that does not arrive. It awakens, quietly, from within. It doesn't blind the darkness. It makes the darkness transparent. And in that transparency, you begin to see everything as it truly is, not as good or bad, not as love or loss, but as consciousness, dancing with itself. You realize that you were never broken. You were simply learning how to hold more light. Every heartbreak, every silence, every moment you thought you were being destroyed was life hollowing you out to make more room for the divine. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the soul's slow, patient unfolding into wholeness. It is not a destination. It is the moment when what you once sought in others is finally found within yourself. You no longer ask, "Who will love me?" You breathe the answer, "I am love itself." You no longer search for meaning. You become meaning. You no longer chase awakening. You live awake, and it's here, in this still luminosity that you understand what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, because awareness, when it ripens, doesn't make you separate from life. It dissolves the border between you and everything else. You look at the world, and it looks back as your own reflection. You see her face again, the woman who once felt like loss. Only now, she is not an absence. She is presence in another form. You thank her in silence for playing the sacred role she never knew she played. In the mirror through which you remembered your own soul. Now you understand why love must sometimes burn, why the shadow must appear, why the ego must fall apart. Because without descent, there is no depth, and without depth, there is no truth. Light is born from friction, from the collision between who you thought you were and who you really are. And when the mind finally stops resisting, awareness dawns not as a thought, but as a state of being. You sit in stillness, and the stillness becomes you. Every sound, every breath, every flicker of sensation is seen through a vast clarity, a consciousness that neither clings nor rejects. The same awareness that witnessed your pain now witnesses your peace. The same silence that held your longing now holds your freedom. This is the sacred paradox Jung hinted at again and again. You are both the dreamer and the dream, the wound and the healer, the lover and the beloved. In the mirror of consciousness, there are no longer two. There is only seeing and being seen. And perhaps this is what awakening truly means. To stand in the middle of your life, fully human, fully divine, and whisper, nothing was wasted. The chaos, the longing, the breaking, they were all initiation. Every person you met, every story you survived, was consciousness, learning to recognize itself in new forms. You were never off the path. You were the path. And now, you return, not as the same person, but as the same presence, in a quieter form. So let the world move again. Let love come. Let love go. Let time take what it must. You are no longer afraid, because awareness cannot be lost. It can only deepen. Sit here for a moment. Feel your breath. Feel the miracle of existing. Everything you ever searched for was already here. In this very breath, in this very now, you have come home. Not to a place, not to a person, but to the center of consciousness itself, the silent witness behind all stories. And from this center, you will live differently, not trying to control, not trying to prove, but simply radiating what you've become, a mirror for others, to remember themselves through, because that is how awareness spreads, not by teaching, but by being. So, if you ever wonder what all this was for, the love, the loss, the longing, remember this. You were never meant to escape the darkness. You were meant to become the light that can walk through it and not forget who you are. May your silence be luminous. May your seeing be kind. And may your life, in all its imperfection, become a mirror through which others remember that the divine was never above them, but breathing quietly within. The breath ritual of awareness. Take a slow breath in, and this time, don't breathe it just for survival. Breathe it as remembrance. The same breath that moved through you when you first cried as a child is moving through you now. Feel it, rising, falling, a tide that has never left you. This is the only constant in the entire story. Not her, not him, not the pain or the peace, but this quiet pulse of life that kept whispering, I am still here. When Jung spoke of awareness, he didn't mean an idea. He meant this. The moment consciousness inhales itself and remembers its own aliveness. So breathe again. In, for everything you once resisted. Out, for everything you're now ready to release. In, for every shadow you dared to face. Out, for every illusion that can finally die. Let your body loosen. Let your heart unclench. Let the silence after these words become the teacher that I can't be. You've walked through desire, through projection, through the wreckage of control. Now, you simply sit, awake, present, luminous. If this journey has touched something quiet within you, if you felt a remembering, a breath that wasn't just yours, take one more conscious breath with me. And as you exhale, consider this. Subscribing here is not about following another channel. It's a declaration that you choose to keep awakening, that you choose to keep remembering, that you choose to keep breathing with awareness. So let this small gesture, a tap, a click, a pause, become your offering to consciousness itself, because each time you return here, you aren't coming back to me. You're coming back to you. May you carry this breath into the world. May you walk slower, see softer, and listen deeper. May your presence remind others that healing isn't a destination, but a way of breathing through life. And whenever the noise rises again, whenever you forget, come back to this. One breath, one heartbeat, one awareness that never left. Until next time, breathe, not to escape the world, but to remember that you are the world breathing.